All right, joining me now is Mike Davis, president of the Article 3 Project, as well as Chris Wecker, former FBI assistant director. So, Mike, I want to play something that former Obama acolyte Ben Rhodes, who today hyped up the dangers of these documents being at Mar-a-Lago. Take a watch.
Just having these documents in Mar-a-Lago is incredibly dangerous. You don't think Mar-a-Lago has been the target of every foreign intelligence service for years? Doesn't exactly look like a hard place to get inside, John, and walk around. These were sitting in boxes, even if they were behind a locked door. It's not like they're not foreign adversaries who are able to try to get their hands on that kind of information and learn really important things potentially about our intelligence collection, our nuclear programs.
Mike, so, I mean, these are boxes at Mar-a-Lago. The Secret Service is on the premises at Mar-a-Lago. But again, that's a severe risk to the American public. But again, and I asked this to Christina, but the Hillary Clinton server that we know that any foreign entity could have accessed was not a threat. Explain that to me.
Yeah, so the president has constitutional authority as commander-in-chief to classify or declassify any record he wants for any reason. He doesn't have to record it. That's his authority as confirmed by the Supreme Court in 1987, Department of the Navy versus Egan. Every former president has an office of former president paid for by the federal government. They get staff, they get office space, they get secure facilities or SCIFs for classified materials. They get security clearances. They get Secret Service protection. These Trump facilities are swept by the Secret Service for bugs. So these are very secure documents. And as you said, Hillary Clinton, as Secretary of State, had an insecure server with the nation's most classified secrets on it. And there is evidence it may have been hacked by foreign governments.
So to follow up on that, though, Mike, I've been in the SCIF. I've looked at documents in the SCIF. And do you think I could have ever taken a document out of the SCIF? No way. Would Donald Trump be allowed to take documents out of the SCIF that could get into boxes that are ending up in Mar-a-Lago that, you know, Russian or Chinese agents are going to access?
So as the president, he could take any record he wants, but they're in a box. They're paper records, they're photos, they're mementos in secure facilities in Mar-a-Lago. So there is no way that President Trump violated the Espionage Act by declassifying these records and taking them with him. He was the president of the United States when he declassified them, and they are safe in Mar-a-Lago. This is a political hit job by Attorney General Merrick Garland and the Biden Justice Department.
I want to come back to that in a second, but first, Chris, I want to go to you. How serious are the statutes that were cited in this warrant?
Yeah, Sean, these are heavyweight statutes. The first statute, 793, is basically the espionage statute. It talks about things that he may have done with the documents that would result in injury to this country, and he did these things willfully. That's serious enough. That's a 10-year penalty if he's convicted. Now, the third statute, which is an obstruction-related statute, carries a 20-year penalty, and it basically says that it alleges that he somehow impeded an ongoing matter, which could have been the grand jury investigation of what we now know is an espionage case. So this is a much more serious case than just possession of classified documents. Yeah, we were led to believe that this was all about just document possession and some argument about how getting these documents back into the archives. Far from it. They're alleging actions on the part of this ex-president and things that he has done that can only be coming from informants.
Yeah. So, Mike, you were talking about the classification issue, and you're saying that what Donald Trump can declassify anything, specifically anything he takes with him, is declassified. Explain.
So the President of the United States has inherent power under the Constitution as Commander-in-Chief to declassify any record he wants for any reason he wants. He does not need to explain it. And so therefore a sitting president can never violate the Espionage Act by declassifying records, by sending them to Mar-a-Lago or whatever. Remember, in 2012, President Obama got caught on a hot mic whispering to the president of Russia, our enemy, saying that he needed some time to get past the presidential election, that he'll have more breathing room, essentially, to negotiate with Russia. That is highly classified material, but President Obama did not violate the Espionage Act by doing that because he is the president.
That is a really good point. I actually forgot about that. Thank you for bringing that up. Mike and Chris, thanks for joining me. Appreciate it.